Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. We begin today's satsang with a prayer by Srimati Sapna Ganesh. This will be followed by Muktaka trayam by Nandakumarji. That will be followed by Upadesa Saram by Revathi Sankar.
दक्षिणामूर्तिसारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमां रमणाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये आङ्गिकं भुवनं यस्य वाचिकं सर्ववाङ्मयम् आहार्यं चन्द्रतारादि तं नमः सात्विकं शिवम् ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय. Namo Ramana to everyone.
Ekam Aksharam Nirantaram Bhasate Swayam Likyate Tatham Hridaya Kubaran Madhye Kevalam Brahmamatram Yaham Maham Iti Sakshat Atmarupena Bhati Hridhi Vishamanasa Swam Chinvata Majjata Avachanamudha Atmanishto Bhakti Deham Brahmanavat Jadatmakam Aham Buddhirnatasyastyato Naham Tattata Bhava Shukti Samay Siddhartha Siddhartha Oham Bhayuta Uto Aratiya Drishtatma Vishtatmana Soham Spurtitaya Arunachala Shivaha Puro Vibhati Swayam सोऽहं स्तूपितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं। नमो नमः।
We will now have the chanting of Upadesa Saram by Srimati Ashwini Balaji.
Namo Ramana. Idamaham pada vidyamannaham ahamilina ke pelaya sattaya vigrahendriya pranaditama nahamekasat tajjadam yasat sattvabhasika chitvavetara sattayahi chet chittayahyaham ईश जीवयोर्वेषदीविद सत्वभावतो वस्तु केवलं वेषहानता स्वात्मदर्शनम् ईश दर्शनं स्वात्मरूपथ आत्मसंस्थिति स्वात्मदर्शनम् आत्मनिर्द्वयादात्मनिष्ठथ ज्ञानवर्जित अज्ञानहीन चेत् ज्ञानमस्ति किं ज्ञातुमन्तरं किं स्वरूपम् इत्यात्मदर्शने अव्यया भव अपूर्णचित् सुखं बन्धमुख्यतीतं परं सुखं विन्दति ह जीवस्तुदैविक अहमपेतकं निजविभानकं महदिदं तपो रमणवागियम्. नमो रमण.
Namo Ramana. We will have 3 songs from Ramananjali Sangeetam. The first one will be by Srimati V. Radha. That will be followed by Savitri Krishnan and Jaisriram Krishnan, which will be followed by a song by Revathi Sankar.
Namo Ramana to all. Today I will be singing a song written by Sri Sadhuvam Swami, and the music is by Ilaiyaraaja. ஆதி அருணாச்சலன பேத குரு வாழ்க ஆத்ம வடிவான பரமாத்மன் அவன் வாழ்க ஆதி அருணாச்சலன பேத குரு வாழ்க ஆத்ம வடிவான பரமாத்மன் அவன் வாழ்க ஜோதி அருட்ஜோதி சிவஜோதி குரு வாழ்க ஜோதி ரமணேசன் குரு ஜோதி சிவன் வாழ்க ஆதி அருணாச்சலன வேத குரு வாழ்க ஆத்ம வடிவான பரமாத்மன் அவன் வாழ்க பாமரரும் பார்த்திடவே பாரில் உருபாதன் நாம ரமணேசன் அருணாச்சல குமாரன் பாமரரும் பார்த்திடவே பாரில் உருபாதன் நாம ரமணேசன் அருணாச்சல குமாரன் மாமனமழித்து வசமாக்குமா வீரன் மாமனமழித்து வசமாக்குமா வீரன் மாயை வலை மீட்டருள வந்த அதிகாரன் ஆதி அருணாச்சலன வேத குரு வாழ்க ஆத்ம வடிவான பரமாத்மன் அவன் வாழ்க தீன ஜனமானிடரும் சேமமுறக்காவாய் மோன வழியான அருளியும் குருவாவாய் தீன ஜனமானிடரும் சேமமுறக்காவாய் மோன வழியான அருளியும் குருவாவாய் தான கருணாகரனே ஞான ज्ञानमय देवा दान करुणाकरणे ज्ञानमय देवा सद्गुरु परारमण देव जय देवा आदि अरुणाचलन वेद गुरु வாழ்க ஆத்ம வடிவான பரமாத்மனவன் வாழ்க ஆதி அருணாச்சலன வேத குரு வாழ்க ஆத்ம வடிவான பரமாத்மனவன் வாழ்க ஜோதி குரு வாழ்க ஜோதி சிவன் வாழ்க ஜோதி குரு வாழ்க ஜோதி சிவன் வாழ்க. நமோ ரமணா.
மனமே மனமே ஓடிவா மௌன வெளியில் ஆடவா மனமே மனமே ஓடிவா மௌன வெளியில் ஆடவா இனிமேல் அலையாது இன்பமுடன் இதயாசனத்தில் வாழவே இனிமேல் அலையாது இன்பமுடன் இதயாசனத்தில் வாழவே மனமே மனமே ஓடிவா மௌன வெளியில் ஆடவா ஞான மோகன ஸ்ரீரமண நாயகன் அழைத்தான் வாராயோ ஞான மோகன ஸ்ரீரமண நாயகன் அழைத்தான் வாராயோ ஈன உலகில் என்ன பயம் என் பெருமானுடன் வாழவே மனமே மனமே ஓடிவா மௌன வெளியில் ஆடவா ஈன உலகில் என்ன பயன் என் பெருமானுடன் வாழவே மனமே மனமே ஓடிவா மௌன வெளியில் ஆடவா செய்கையெல்லாம் வீடுனக்கோ தேவையும் வேண்டாம் ஓய்ந்திடுவாய் செய்கையெல்லாம் வீணுனக்கோ தேவையும் வேண்டாம் ஓய்ந்திடுவாய் தெய்வரமணன் சீர்வடி மேலே தெய்வரமணன் சீர்வடி மேலே செல்ல குழந்தையாய் வாழவே மனமே மனமே ஓடிவா தெய்வரமணன் சீர்வடி மேலே செல்ல குழந்தையாய் வாழவே மனமே மனமே ஓடிவா மௌன வெளியில் ஆடவா இனிமேல் அலையாது இன்பமுடன் இதயாசனத்தில் வாழவே மனமே மனமே ஓடிவா மௌன வெளியில் ஆடவா மனமே மனமே ஓடிவா மௌன வெளியில் ஆடவா. ஓம் நமோ பகவதே ஸ்ரீரமணாய.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We are meditating on the 21st verse of Ramana Suprabhatam. शोणोगिरिः स्मरणमात्रविमोक्षहेतुः सार्थीकृतो भगवता रमणाभिधेन शोणाचलेशपदपद्मसमर्पितेन श्रीशोणशैलभगवंस्तव सुप्रभातम्. शोणोगिरिः स्मरणमात्रविमोक्षहेतुः सार्थीकृतो भगवता रमणाभिधेन शोणाचलेशपदपद्मसमर्पितेन श्रीशोणशैलभगवंस्तव सुप्रभातम्. Good morning. O Bhagavan of Arunachala. Arunachala liberates those who merely remember it. You, Bhagavan, by dedicating yourself to the feet of Arunachaleshwara, have reinforced this. It is said, if you are born in Tiruvarur, die in Kashi, think of Arunachala, we get moksha. Bhagavan showed this to all of us. He was thinking of Arunachala from when he could even say the words Amma or Appa. He had this Purana of Arunachala in his heart from when he remembered. Even before he could remember, he says, when we remember Arunachala, he gives us the ultimate state. Kantam irumbu pol kavarndennai vidamal kalandennod iruppai Arunachala, Bhagavan said. He pulls us. Peyar ninaithidave pidithiluttanai. We remember his name and he gives us his own state. I present to you a song written by Puti Narsimhachar, the music by S.V. Venkatraman. ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ಅರುಣ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ಅರುಣ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ಪರಮಯೋಗಿಯಾಗಿ ಹರನೆ ನರರನು ಧರಿಸಿ ನಿಂತ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ಅರುಣ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ಅರುಣ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ನೆನೆವ ನಡಿದು ಲೋಕಕ್ಕೆಲ್ಲ ಮನುಜರಂತೆ ಬಾಳುತ್ತಿದ್ದ ಮುನಿಗೆ ನಿಜ ಸ್ಫುರಣವಿತ್ತು ಮುನಿಗೆ ನಿಜ ಸ್ಫುರಣವಿತ್ತು ಸನಿಹಕೆಯೇ ಸೆಳೆಯು ತಂದ ಸನಿಹಕೆಯೇ ಸೆಳೆದು ತಂದ ಸನಿಹಕೆಯೇ ಸೆಳೆದು ತಂದ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ಅರುಣ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ಅರುಣ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ಸದಾ ಚಲಿಸುತ್ತಿರುವ ಜಗದ ಉದಾಸೀನ ಸಾಕ್ಷಿಯಂತೆ ಇದೋ ಕಾಮನ ಚಲರೂಪ ಇದೋ ಕಾಂಬನ ಚಲರೂಪ ಸುಧಾ ಕಿರಣ ಜಠಾಭರಣ ಸುಧಾ ಕಿರಣ ಜಠಾಭರಣ ಸುಧಾ ಕಿರಣ ಜಟಾಭರಣ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ಅರುಣ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ಅರುಣ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ದೇಗುಲದೊಳು ಲಿಂಗವಾನವಾಗಿರೊಳು ಲಿಂಗರೂಪ ವೇಗಣವರು ಕರುಬುವಂತೆ ವೇಗಣವರು ಕರುಬುವಂಥ ಯೋಗಿ ರಮಣ ಬಲ ಬರುತಿಹ ಯೋಗಿ ರಮಣ ಬಲ ಬರುತಿಹ ಯೋಗಿ ರಮಣ ಬಲ ಬರುತಿಹ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ಅರುಣ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ಅರುಣ ಗಿರಿಯನುತಿಸಿರೋ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಪ್ರೇಮಾಯುತಲೋಚನ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಪ್ರೇಮಾಯುತಲೋಚನ ಲೋಕಶೋಕಮೋಚನ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಸಕ್ತ ನಿಶ್ಚಲ ಲೋಕಶೋಕಮೋಚನ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಸಕ್ತ ನಿಶ್ಚಲ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ವತ್ಸಲ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ವತ್ಸಲ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ರಮಣ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ರಮಣ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ ರಮಣ. We will now have the reading and sharing of the book Forever is in the Now by Sri Nandakumarji.
Namo Ramana. In this, the book reading segment of our satsang, we continue our readings from Forever is in the Now, the timeless message of Sri Ramana Maharshi, edited and compiled and also contributed to by our founder president Shri A.R. Natarajanji. Today we are reading an article contributed by Dr. Sarada, Ramana the Enigma. Ramana the Enigma. Dr. Sarada, of course, is known to all of us, but I read the introduction in the book. Editor of the monthly The Ramana Way, published by the Ramana Maharshi Center, author of Ramana Way in Search of the Self and Ramana Tata. Let's partake in the sharing of Akka. Can one know hunger yet be totally indifferent to food? Can one love deeply yet have no longing for the beloved's company, no pangs of separation? Can one experience pain yet smile softly when leeches have attached themselves to one's painful malignant tumor? Can one grieve at death yet be untouched by sorrow? Can one be genuinely concerned that everyone who comes into one's presence is well fed, yet not expend a single thought for the starving millions of the world? Can one give away gifts with thoughtful tenderness and then reclaim them simply because a ruling says so? Can one be angry without feeling anger? Can one spend a whole day on carving a wooden staff and give it away to any old man who comes one's way? Can one share and dissolve the suffering of every man and yet emphatically declare that others should not be one's concern? If one can, then one is a knower of the self, liberated while alive, the divine in human flesh. We might well have declared this an impossibility had we not seen it happening before our very eyes, had we not the testimony of the many who lived with such a one, and many more whom good fortune took to him for at least a short spell. For every one of these seemingly paradoxical propositions is an event in the life of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. So let's go back and see the paradoxical events proposed by Akka, then proceed further. Can one know hunger, yet be totally indifferent to food? Can one love deeply, yet have no longing for the beloved's company? No pangs of separation? Can one experience pain, yet smile softly when leeches have attached themselves to one's painful malignant tumor? Can one grieve at death, yet be untouched by sorrow? Can one be genuinely concerned that everyone who comes into one's presence is well fed, yet not expend a single thought for the starving millions of the world? Can one give away gifts with thoughtful tenderness and then reclaim them simply because a ruling says so? Can one be angry without feeling anger? Can one spend a whole day on carving a wooden staff and give it away to any old man who comes one's way? Can one share and dissolve the suffering of every man, yet emphatically declare that others should not be one's concern? Every one of these seemingly paradoxical propositions is an event in the life of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. Yes, Bhagavan knew hunger, else where was the need for him to walk the streets of Tiruvannamalai, to clap his hands and beg for food? Yet, could that be called begging? Those who beheld his majestic gait, the radiant form, the supreme indifference in the clap, the absolute grace of the outstretched arms, and the nonchalant wiping of the hands on the head when the food was eaten, would describe him only as King of Kings. But then, what special love Bhagavan seemed to shower on those who had fed him in those days and on the hill? Yes, it must be because he knew hunger. Was it not he, though, who for days on end, perhaps months, at Patala Lingam, ate nothing at all? Often at other times too, no more than a single meal was forthcoming. That is, if one may call a mixture of turmeric, milk, honey, and ghee a meal. There were days in the early years when devotees would make a ball of rice and place it in Bhagavan's mouth. When they opened his mouth to repeat the process the next day, sometimes the previous mouthful would be found unchewed, uneaten. Can we say Bhagavan really knew hunger? If we say he did not, what is the explanation for his gentle insistence that every comer to the ashram should be well fed? Bhagavan's compassion flowed first through enquiries about whether the visitor or devotees had eaten. If they had not, they were right away directed to the dining hall, regardless of the time of the day. It is said the fire in the ashram kitchen was never put out. Certainly, Bhagavan knew the meaning of hunger, yet hunger could not hold him, could not rule him, even for a moment. Bhagavan knew pain. When the malignant tumor appeared repeatedly on Bhagavan's arm and could no more be operated upon, doctors suggested amputation of the arm. Bhagavan firmly refused. Did that mean that he was unaware of the pain? Of course not. If asked whether it was painful, Bhagavan would reply, yes, there is pain. So significant is the very manner of reply. There is pain, not it is painful or I am having pain. The pain is experienced fully, yet almost as it were someone else's pain. That is why when leeches were applied to the tumors to suck the bad blood and refused to fall out, Bhagavan could joke. The leeches too seemed to have gone into samadhi. When the tumor bled and the devotees grew sad and anxious, Bhagavan had the same serene smile. It was so in every instance. When Rangan noticed that a thorn had pricked Bhagavan's foot, he wished to remove it. Then Sri Ramana showed his foot and asked, which one would you like to remove? There were so many thorns in the foot, simply broken off by rubbing the foot against the ground. Should one imagine on account of this that Bhagavan felt no sensation at all in the body, that his body was as good as anesthetized? If so, when he was strung by the drove of hornets on the thigh, he should have walked back to the ashram as if the leg was unhurt. But the leg was swollen and Bhagavan had to drag himself to the ashram with great difficulty. However, there was no mental reaction to the pain. Perhaps one could say that there was pain, but no suffering. I'll read that suggestion by Akka again. Should one imagine on account of this that Bhagavan felt no sensation at all in the body and his body was as good as anesthetized? If so, when he was stung by a drove of hornets on the thigh, he should have walked back to the ashram as if the leg was unhurt. But the leg was swollen and Bhagavan had to drag himself to the ashram with great difficulty. However, there was no mental reaction to the pain. Perhaps one could say that there was pain, but no suffering. If there had been a reaction, would Bhagavan have allowed the hornets to sting his thigh in the first place? His leg merely accidentally brushed the bush and their nest was disturbed. He made no escape, but stood there, allowing the hornets to sting the offending thigh and expend their wrath. The pain was there, yet it was from him a thing apart. was true not only on what pertained to Bhagavan's body of physical sensations. Every experience was lived by him and more completely than we could ever live it. Yet, he transcended all experience. Could anyone have showered greater love for the lame little abandoned monkey? Bhagavan took him to Skandashramam, nursed him back to health, fed him daily with broth. Bhagavan even received a hard slap from him. Nundi, the lame monkey, Nundi mistook him to be drinking the broth while Bhagavan was actually cooling it. He was blowing over the broth to cool it down. Nundi mistook him to be drinking the broth while Bhagavan was actually cooling it. Did Bhagavan receive with assumed patience? Did Bhagavan respond with assumed patience? No. Bhagavan was the most spontaneous, the most natural person. The moment Nundi slapped him, he put the bowl down and said, "Come and drink it yourself." But when Nundi pleaded and refused to touch the food, Bhagavan relented. Then there was absolutely no trace of anger or hurt. Such was the intimate relationship between Bhagavan and the monkeys on the hill that when Nundi became king, they came to the ashram to celebrate the occasion. They would come to Bhagavan to share their joys and sorrows alike, to have him bless a newborn or settle a dispute. Indeed, every living being felt specially loved in his presence. Children would climb the hill on their own and sit silently for hours in front of him. There were, of course, many occasions when he played with them, celebrating doll marriages, holding marble matches, and bursting festive crackers. A devotee describes Bhagavan as being a child among children, a perfect kitchen maid to the uneducated women working there, a villager among rustics, a scholar par excellence amidst the learned. To the monkeys, squirrels, cows, dogs, and all animals, he was a dear friend who belonged in their eyes totally to them. To those who came seeking liberation, he was the resplendent sun of knowledge. To the devotee, the embodiment of the Supreme. He belonged wherever he was, to whomsoever he was with, yet no place could bind him. No one could claim him only for themselves. No emotion could govern him. Every experience found a place in him, but could never contain him. His love was boundless, yet he was attached to none. He could leave the hill friends and come down to Sri Ramanashramam when the need arose. They pined for him, those animals who could not break their territorial laws and come to him. And he did not daily pine for those companions. Had Bhagavan forgotten them then? Did he not care? This is the explanation for that paradox where Akka had mentioned, which appeared unanswerable then, but then is answered by this incident. I'll read that paradox. Akka mentions, can one give away gifts with thoughtful tenderness and then reclaim them simply because a ruling says so? That is what she is explaining here, how Bhagavan could participate with those monkeys and their territorial nature without the restrictions in Skandashramam and up the hill. But the moment he came down to Ramanashramam, what happened? He could give respect to their laws and not pine for them, but allow them to come when and if possible. I'll read that part again because it's a very interesting presentation. He could leave the hill friends and come down to Sri Ramanashramam when the need arose. They pined for him, those animals who could not break their territorial laws and come to him. But he did not daily pine for those companions. Had Bhagavan forgotten them then? Did he not care? Then why did he rush to the fence when an old monkey braved the wrath of his fellows and came down? Why did tears flow from Bhagavan's Bhagavan says, as he talked to this grandfather monkey and explained why he could not meet them. Yes, Bhagavan had no attachment to things or to people, and thereby he demonstrated that only one who knows no attachment can truly love. By no means does detachment mean indifference. Is it because he did not care that Bhagavan broke his collarbone to save a squirrel from a pursuing dog? Is it because he did not care that Bhagavan broke his collarbone to save a squirrel from a pursuing dog? Could it be indifference that prompted him to walk all the way up to Skandashramam with his collarbone not yet fully set, making his way through thorn and shrubs, weak and panting, and helped by devotees, just to fulfill the unspoken desire of a poor mason? These two incidents, Bhagavan, when a dog is pursuing a squirrel to hurt it, Bhagavan thrusts his walking stick in between the path, and in that thrust he gets imbalanced, falls over, and his collarbone is broken. And even before that is fully said, one of the masons who is working in Skandashramam, when the Ramanashramam is well settled, he is repairing something in Skandashramam and working alone. But he has a deep desire that Bhagavan is supervising and his eyes are falling on other workers down at the ashram. But will he ever come and see me? In response to that, Bhagavan goes, so I read that part again. Is it because he did not care that Bhagavan broke his collarbone to save a squirrel from a pursuing dog? Could it be indifference that prompted him to walk all the way up to Skandashramam with his collarbone not yet fully set, making his way through thorn and shrubs, weak and panting, and helped by devotees, just to fulfill the unspoken desire of a poor mason? Why did Bhagavan too weep when Akshamal came to him with the news of her daughter Chellamal's death? Yet could one state that Bhagavan was grieved at Chellamal's passing, that he suffered sorrow on account of it? Not at all. This indeed is the enigma that is Bhagavan. He is so fully in everything, so naturally a part of all that happens in his presence, yet so totally apart. Is this really possible? It cannot be denied either, for so many are witness to it. In fact, the answer lies in the seeming paradox itself, within the very folds of the apparent mystery. For it is only one who completely participates in the present who can remain unhurried by the future, unbullied by the past, unsullied by the softest stroke of longing, of desire, uncrossed by the lightest shadow of thought, untainted by identity, is such a one. He knows hunger, but is indifferent to food, experiences pain, but is totally detached from it, shivers in cold, but seeks not to possess a single garment, brings perfection to all. Brings perfection to all he does, yet is not attached to either the process or product of perfection, cares deeply about every little thing, yet is anxious about nothing, pays loving attention to all who come to him, yet his attention is ever only on the self. The article is still there, but I close by reading this last paragraph. This indeed is the enigma that is Bhagavan. He is so fully in everything, so naturally a part of all that happens in his presence, yet so totally apart. Is this really possible? It cannot be denied either, for so many are witness to it. In fact, the answer lies in the seeming paradox itself, within the very folds of the apparent mystery. For it is only the one who completely participates in the present, who can remain unhurried by the future, by the past, unsullied by the softest stroke of longing, of desire, uncrossed by the lightest shadow of thought, untainted by identity, is such a one. He knows hunger, but is indifferent to food, experiences pain, but is totally detached from it, shivers in the cold, but seeks not to possess a single garment, brings perfection to all he does, yet is not attached to either the process or product of perfection, cares deeply about every little thing, yet is anxious about nothing, pays loving attention to all who come to him, yet his attention is ever only on the self. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We will now have self-enquiry session led by Sri Dilip Sinha.
Namo Ramana.
ध्यायेत् शारदचन्द्रसुन्दरमुखम् ताम्रारविन्देक्षणम् भक्ताभीष्टवराभयप्रदकरम् कौपीनमोत्रोज्ज्वलम् स्वात्मानन्दरसानुभूतिविवशम् सर्वानवद्याङ्गकम् श्रीमन्तं श्रीरमणेश्वरं गुरुवरम् योगासनाध्यासितं ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रं यहमहमिति साक्षातात्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वतामज्जताव पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्। Namo Ramana. We will commence today's Atma Vichara by listening to Bhagavan's Upadesham. As always, I will be reading from Guru Vachaka Kovai. The chapter today is Investigation into the Truth. The topic is the indispensability of grace. Verse 290. Peace of mind, Shanti, which is desired by everyone, is not attained by anyone, anywhere, through any means, except through the grace of the Guru. Therefore, those who want peace should continuously inquire and seek alone that grace in the heart with their whole mind. I repeat the verse. Peace of mind, Shanti, which is desired by everyone, is not attained by anyone, anywhere, through any means except through the grace of the Guru. Therefore, those who want peace should continuously inquire and seek alone that grace in the heart with their whole mind. In a few weeks back, Nandakumarji read out, and I don't remember who it was, where Bhagavan says it is the grace which bestows the peace, and the devotee asks, how is one to get it? Bhagavan then answers, grace is continuously present, you don't come in between. So that is when we say you don't come in between, in the light of self-enquiry, we see that it is I, the thinker, and my thoughts, which is completely imaginative, not accepting whatever, because grace alone is, says Bhagavan. So whatever is there right now, every moment, is pure grace. But when I, as an individual, as a thinker, either reject what is happening right now, or even make a commentary or comment about what is good that is happening right now, I am intervening what is there at the present, which is what Akka very beautifully brought out. That being in the now, not worrying about the future, not worrying about the past, is how we see Bhagavan was spontaneous. That means this thinker, this thought, is the enemy for all of us, who continues to come in between the grace, which is continuously flowing. In fact, that grace is the only thing which is. But this thinker and his thoughts seem to come in between or divert our attention away, make our mind move. Instead of making the whole mind, as it's been said here, the whole mind to be abiding in the heart, abiding in that grace, surrender to that grace. Instead of that, the mind is divided. The mind is divided or full of thoughts, and each thought takes us away from the grace, making that imaginary thought or that imaginary concept look a lot bigger than the grace. Therefore, in self-enquiry, Bhagavan has asked us to question every thought, which is nothing but the thinker and the divisions, and inquire to whom is this thought, figure out it is for me, and realize that I, as the first and the foremost division, has arisen from that grace, apart from the grace, as an imaginary reality, and as consumed or suppressed or making us not experience the grace which alone is. Therefore, Bhagavan asks us to diligently inquire, who am I? And get back to that grace, that which is nothing but the Guru himself, who is in the heart, ever blessing us every moment. And by inquiring who am I, we turn and surrender the thinker to that grace. And by repeatedly doing it, that's what Bhagavan says here, that therefore those who want peace should continuously inquire. And when we continuously make the thinker surrender to that grace which alone is, in the due course, this whole mind, that which is now divided with innumerable thoughts, becomes completely free of all the thoughts, becomes full and abides in the heart, in the grace itself. And then the peace of mind that we are asking, which we are desiring, becomes attained. And this happens only by the virtue of the thinker completely surrendering to the grace, and then the grace of the Guru blessing us and taking over this mind and making it whole and complete here and now. With the immense grace of Bhagavan, with which we have come to this most direct path, for the next 10 minutes, let us do Atma Vichara. In Atma Vichara, every thought, no matter what kind of thought it is, good, bad, ugly, spiritual, we understand that it is only for the thinker. And therefore, we diligently inquire to whom is this thought, and the answer would come, it is for me. Thereupon, we should inquire, who am I? The question, the very questioning of who am I is invoking the grace of the Guru. When we ask, what do I refer to as I, or where from this I thought rises within me, we are taken to the grace itself. The mind is taken to the grace itself. The whole mind is taken to the grace. And with repeated practice, Bhagavan assures that the mind will gain enough strength to completely surrender to that grace, to that self, which alone is. And until such time that the grace shines naturally, effortlessly, we should continuously do this Atma Vichara. And by the virtue of continuous practice of this Atma Vichara, Bhagavan assures that the peace of mind will be gained by his grace. So with the immense grace of Bhagavan, for the next 10 minutes, let us do Atma Vichara. Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana. Thank you.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the Manana on Sri Dakshinamurti Stotram by Sri Nandakumar. Venkatesh Deshpande sir.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviram Karvavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Dakshinamurti Sarambham Shankaracharya Madhyama Ramananjali Paryanta Vande Guru Parampara Vande Guru Parampara Vande Guru Parampara. Namo Ramana. We're doing Manana on Dakshinamurti Stotram. So why are we doing Manana at all on this Stotram? God in the form of the Guru, God in the form of the Guru with form takes me to the formless. God in the form of the Guru with form takes me to the formless. When I transcend form, I become fearless because I am deathless. Because I am deathless, I transcend the form, I become fearless. So that's why we are doing Manana on Dakshinamurti Stotra. I request Sapna to kindly chant the Dhyana Shloka and the verse number 40.
Yes, sir. मौनव्याख्या प्रकटितः परब्रह्मतत्त्वं युवानां वर्षिष्टान्ते वसदृषिगणैः आवृतं ब्रह्मनिष्ठैः आचार्येन्द्रं करकलितचिन्मुद्रमानन्दमूर्तिं स्वात्मा रामं मुदितवदनं दक्षिणामूर्तिमीडे नानाच्छिद्रघटोदरस्थिता महादीपप्रभाभास्वरं ज्ञानं यस्य तु चक्षुरादिकरणाद्वारा बहिः स्पन्दते जानामीति तमेव भान्तम् अनुभात्येतत्समस्तं जगत् तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नानाच्छिद्रघटोदरस्थिता महादीपप्रभाभास्वरं ज्ञानं यस्य तु चक्षुरादिकरणाद्वारा बहिः स्पन्दते जानामीति तमेव भान्तम् अनुभात्येतत्समस्तं जगत् तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sapna. Dhyana Shloka says, I salute Sri Dakshinamurti, the young Guru, who teaches the knowledge of Brahman through silence, who is surrounded by disciples who are themselves rishis and scholars in the Vedas. I worship Sri Dakshinamurti, who is the teacher of teachers, whose hand is held in the sign of knowledge, Chinmudra, whose nature is fullness, who reveals in himself and who is ever silent. And we switch to verse number 4. It says, he whose intelligence flashes outside through the eyes and other sense organs, just like the bright light of a great lamp placed in a jar having many holes, and after whose shining this whole universe of objects shines. To him, the divine teacher, Sri Dakshinamurti, is this prostration. So last time we did Manana on the first line of this verse. So what Bhagavan is trying to say is the light of consciousness is like the lamp placed in the belly of a pot. The pot is pierced with many holes. The light streams out from the pot. If something is near the pot, it is illumined, but it is illumined only if it is in the stream of the light coming out of the pot. In the same way, if something is in the way of your eye, it is illumined. This light of consciousness is extraordinary because it is present simultaneously in every living being, every pot, so to speak. What makes it extraordinary is that the same light of consciousness is present behind thoughts of everyone. That is why it is called Mahadeepa. Consciousness does not have any particular qualities. For example, there is no male consciousness and female consciousness. There is no short consciousness and tall consciousness. There is no black consciousness and white consciousness. Consciousness is featureless. Basically, it is nirguna. It is important to address this question about, first of all, we need to understand what to speak about the dealings with the other thoughts. First of all, thank God for having this natural law, the natural law, which is that there is a common question. If my consciousness is the same as your consciousness, then why don't I know your thoughts? So it's important to address this question. If my consciousness and your consciousness is identical, why don't I know your thoughts? The one who is asking the question is not the consciousness. The one who is asking this question is the mind. And my mind is separate from your mind. Everyone's mind is in their own pot. Therefore, even though it is the same consciousness that illumines your thoughts and my thoughts, the thoughts belong to the mind. And mind is absolutely distinct. Nonetheless, one consciousness illumines all. Not only the thoughts, but your consciousness also streams out of your eyes, streams out of your ears, through your nose, through your mouth, through your skin, and contact everything around it. This is how we know, this is how we come to know the world around us. This knowledge, jnanam, is known as consciousness. Let's come to the second line. This consciousness streams throughout, through sense organs that just now we saw, through the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, etc. And it connects back to the Guru. The consciousness is the one because of whom one can thus say, I know. You can't say, I know in the absence of consciousness. That alone shines and this entire world shines. That refers to consciousness in the form of Sri Dakshinamurti, as well as Guru, who imparts this knowledge to the seekers. The sun shines and the moon also shines, but the moon shines differently. The sun has its own source of illumination. The moon does not have its own source of illumination, but it shines after the sun. It reflects the light received from the sun. The moon is known to you because of the sun. If there was no sun, you would not know the moon. Similarly, the entire world is known because of the consciousness. The consciousness shines upon the entire world. The entire world is illumined by consciousness. Therefore, the world is available for perception, available to the known. Illumining the world would be understood in two ways. One is through our own sense organs. We illumine little portion of the world. Secondly, consciousness that pervades the universe, illumining everything. This is a very profound teaching. The reference to this teaching is found in many Vedic scriptures. Like Srimad Bhagavad Gita says, neither the sun nor the moon nor fire illumines that consciousness, having gone to which, gaining the knowledge, they do not return. Ignorance is destroyed. That is my limitless abode that liberates forever. I'll read that again. Neither the sun, nor the moon, nor the fire illumines that consciousness, having gone to which, gaining the knowledge, they do not return. Ignorance is destroyed. That is my limitless abode that liberates forever. In the Katha Upanishad and the Mundak Upanishads also they say, there the sun does not shine, nor the moon or stars. There this lighting does not shine. What to speak about this fire? That alone consciousness shines. Everything shines after it. By the light of that awareness, consciousness, entire universe is illuminated, made manifest. Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye. This salutation is unto that consciousness. That alone shines, illumining the entire cosmos, who is in the form of Guru, Shri Guru Murtaye, as well as in the form of Shri Dakshinamurti. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the sharing of Devi Kalotra Jnana Vichara Padalam by Dr.Kalarani Rengasamy.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Arunachalamenna agame ninaippava agathai veraruppai Arunachala. Namo Ramana to all. With the abundance grace of Bhagwan, we are meditating on Devi Kalotra Jnana Vichara Padalam, very graciously given to us by Bhagwan in Tamil. And in the last satsang we saw, because of the ignorance, ego, the ahankara, imagine this body as I. By doing so, it stands aloof of the self. The all-pervading self also stands aside of the ahankara. Bhagavan says, agam என்பதற்கு அந்நியமாகி அகமை பொருளுக்கு அபின்னமாய். But when the mind, the ego or the ahankara abides in itself, all-pervading Purna Swarupa, what it does, it swallows the ego. And there will be no separate entity to be called as mind or ego. When the waves, for an example, when the wave comes out of the ocean, it seems to be separated from the ocean. But when it goes back to its origin, it is never a wave at all, only the sea water. The jiva imagines to be a separate entity and thereby experience sukha dukkha. But once it is abide in the origin, the source from where it emerged, then it becomes the Swarupa itself, and only Ananda will prevail there. In the next stanza, Bhagavan says, Agayam pol agilattagam puramum yehangamai uruvam indri tam. Space is all pervasive. It will be the same everywhere. Will there be any difference in space which is in our country and that which is in USA or Europe? It is all pervasive. We cannot say here there is less space and there it is little bit more space. No, we can't say that. Likewise, self is formless and all pervading. It does not have any form of its own. Once a devotee asked Bhagavan whether Anma is with Rupa or it is Arupa. Bhagavan said, why are you worried about that? You find out who are you first. Then this question will not arise at all. So Bhagavan in this stanza says, without any form, the Swarupa prevails everywhere like space. The Purana Vastu is there in each and every object of the world, both inside and outside. It's like an ice bar immersed in water. Now we can find the water both inside and outside the ice bar. The Vastu, which is filled in each and every object, does not have any form of its own. What all form we see in the world is immersed in that Swarupa only, because self is Ati Sukshama. It is there everywhere and is all pervasive. Though it does not have any Rupa, it is Ananda Swarupa only. When Jiva merges into that Ananda Swarupa, it also becomes Ananda Swarupa. Paramanandathur padindavar, Aparamananda padivar, says Bhagavan. Paramanandathur padindavar, Aparamananda padivar. When the ego abides in the self, there will be no separate identity for the mind to say, it is me. There will be there will be a rasavada called sparsavedi. When an iron is immersed in that, it will make the iron into gold. We call it as sparsavedi. Likewise, when the mind, when gets abide in the self, which is Ananda Swarupa, also becomes the self and Ananda Swarupa. How wonderful it is! That is Anma Nivedana. Once a devotee was doing Shashtanga Namaskaram before Bhagavan empty number of times. Then Bhagavan said, why are you doing this exercise repeatedly? Do Namaskaram to Atma. Do Atma Nivedana. That is complete surrender. When this happens, then one can realize the all-pervading self both within and outside. Once the Sukshma Vastu is realized, then there is nothing else other than the self. There will be no Anya Bhava. Bhagavan's life is a full example for this. He can't see anyone other than the self. Even the animals were seen as self only by Bhagavan. That is why they were allowed with such great liberty in the ashram. Abundance of the mind, leads to samadrishti. When there is samadrishti, there will be nothing like ours separately. There will be no mamahara, and there will be no desire for anything. There will be no mind to aspire for anything. Then where will be the sorrow come? Only happiness will provide. Shiva himself wonders. He says in this poem, Aha, Par. See, Parvati, when once the mind get abide in this Atman, then the mind also becomes that Atman. And that which is always in bliss. After that, the karma that is done in this world reaches only God. The fruits need not be enjoyed by the doer. There will be no doership. Once, I'll tell you an example. Once there was a Krishna temple in a small town. Early in the morning, the priest and his assistant, a boy called Tulsiram, used to go to that temple at 4 a.m. Tulsiram used to pluck flowers and make them into garland for Krishna. And after making it into garland, he used to give those garlands to the priest. But when he is plucking the flowers and making the garland, he used to imagine to adorn the garland himself to Krishna. Such was his devotion. When the priest get inside the Garbhagriha, he was surprised that there is already a garland around Krishna's neck. He got angry. He called Tulsiram and scolded him, saying, How dare you enter the shrine and adorn that garland to Krishna? From tomorrow onwards, you need not make any garland. Go and fill water in the big vessel. He said, okay. He filled the water with full devotion as Krishna Arpanam. Next day, when the priest opened the door, water was flowing into the sanctorium. Krishna had already had his abhishekam. Priest again got angry and transferred Tulsiram to Madapalli, where prasadam used to be made. In that section, and he was asked to cut vegetables and help the kitchen staff. He did the work with great devotion to Krishna and said, it's Krishna Arpanam. The priest closed the sanctorium and took the key himself so that this Tulsiram can't enter the shrine. But what a surprise, when he opened the door, he was shocked. He saw a sweet pongal in the corner of Krishna's mouth. He now asked Tulsiram, look after those chapels, okay? And you need not enter the temple at all. You look after the chapels of the visitors to the temple. And Tulsiram found no difference in his work because everything is equal for him. So he did the duty with great sincerity and he said it's at Krishna Arpanam. Again, the priest closed the door and took away the keys so that Tulsiram can't enter the Garbhagriha. But when he opened the door next day, there was a shock waiting for him. Krishna was wearing a pair of chappals. Tears rolled down from the priest's eyes. How come instead of the lotus, ordinary animal skin chappal is adorning Krishna's feet? I'm confused. I'm very sorrow to see this. Then he heard a beautiful voice of Krishna saying, Tulsiram, whatever he does, offers us to me as Krishna Arpanam. That is why I am accepting them all, including the chappal. There is no difference. When one surrenders all actions to the God and abides in the self, there will be no separate mind to think the worldly objects. All inside and outside will be the self alone, and Anandam only will prevail. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the sharing of Ramana Chatvarimshat by Sri Ujwal Jagadeesh.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Dharmenashamupagate tribhuvane parjakule papatah prajnane parito giram patimuda sancharyamane janaihi सद्भावे परमेश्वरस्य च पितु सन्देहडोलाङ्गते द्वीपकैतवमर्त्यकेतितुरग स्वामन्तर कसतां रमणाय लोकगुरवे नमः रमणाय लोकगुरवे नमः ಧರ್ಮನಾಶವಾಗುತ್ತಿದೆ ತ್ರಿಲೋಕವು ಮರುಳಾಗಿದೆ ಪಾಪದಿ ನಿಜ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಅರಿಯದ ಜನರು ಎಲ್ಲೆಡೆ ತೊಡಗಿಹರು ವಾದದಿ ಸದಾ ಪೊರೆವ ತಂದೆ ಪರಮೇಶ್ವರನ ಇರುವೆ ಸಂದೇಹಿಸಲ್ಪಡುತ್ತಿದೆ ರಕ್ಷೆ ನೀನೆ ನರವೇಶಿನ ವಿಲುವಾಹನನೆ ನೀನಲ್ಲದೆ ಇತರಾರೆ ಮಗೆ ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ. In this verse of Ramana Chatvarimshat, composed by Ganapati Muni, he is telling who else can bring good to this world, who is Sataha, who is good, who is noble to this world other than you, oh, the one who mounts on the peacock, who has come in the human form. Who else is good to this earth? Because you have promised that whenever the dharma wanes and adharma waxes, you appear amidst us to sustain the virtue and the virtuous. How can we describe your glory? How can we describe your form? Says Gitacharya. And the same verse has been translated by Bhagavan Ramana too, because he also assures that he has only come to reveal what is dharma, what is the right duty that has to be performed by everyone, and to remove all the adharma. The verse describing Vishnu, Bhagavan Ramana writes, அறம் தாழ வாழ மரமன்றெல்லாம் தோன்றி அறம் வாழ வாழ அறவோர் மரம் சாய்த்து மண்ணுலகை வாழ்விக்கும் மாயா உனது உருவை எண்ணுவதற்கு யாமாறினி அறம் தாழ வாழ மரமன்றெல்லாம் தோன்றி அறம் வாழ வாழ அறவோர் வரம் சாய்த்து மண்ணுலகை வாழ்விக்கும் மாயா உனது உருவை எண்ணுவதற்கு யாமாறினி. மாயா உனது உருவை எண்ணுவதற்கு யாமாறினி. Oh, the mysterious one. How can we envisage your glory, that how you appear in different forms to different people, and how you protect them, how you protect the virtuous and the noble, and how you protect dharma. For a few examples, we have heard in the Puranas about the 10 avatars. Vishnu had taken to Vishnu had taken to protect. I remember a story of Akbar and Birbal, where once Akbar, the king Akbar, asked Birbal, "Oh Birbal, you say Vishnu is such a great one, and he's so powerful, all powerful, but why did he have to take this great difficulty of coming to the earth every time when people were in difficulty? Every time there was some asura, adharma used to wax, he had to come and destroy that adharma and to bring up and sustain the dharma. Why did he have to come 10 times, 10 avatars he had to take?" And Birbal said, "Jahapana, I will answer to your question for sure, but at the right moment I will give the answer." So saying, many days passed, and Akbar with his family and the ministers and the soldiers, they had planned a trip, an excursion in a boat, in a huge royal boat where the whole family of Akbar and Akbar's children and his wives and the family, everybody with the ministers and the soldiers, they were all in this excursion on a boat. And Birbal had this plan, and there was a thud sound, and somebody, as if somebody was falling into the water, and Birbal started shouting, "Oh Jahapana, your children are inside the water, they have fallen inside the water." And the Jahapana did not even think a minute. He jumped into the water and he was swimming to see where his children were, and he could see that his children were still in the boat and they were clapping at what Akbar had done. He was swimming in the water and the children were clapping, and Akbar was really angry that he had heard the news that they had fallen inside the water. But he could see that they are safe in the boat, and he quickly came up to the boat and he told Birbal, "You have to give a proper explanation, otherwise you will be given punishment." And Akbar requested, "Oh Jahapana, please change your clothes, wear dry clothes, and I'll explain to you." And then Jahapana changed his dress and he was awaiting for the answer from Birbal. And Birbal told, "Oh Jahapana, you are a great king. You have so many soldiers around you, so intelligent ministers around you. You have your family around you. But when you heard the news that your children were in difficulty, you did not send any of them. You yourself jumped into the water to protect them. The one, the Supreme, is the Father of the whole universe. And when his children are in difficulty, it is his compassion that he comes every time to protect us and to show us the right path." In Sadhu Swami writes in the Arunachala Ramana Aksharamanamalai that "Kurmam Matsyam Adi Dashavita Kolamedittoi Namo Namo Kurmam Matsyam Adi Dashavita Kolamedittoi Namo Namo." These lines are specially chosen by Srimati Sulochana in a project that she was working, an audio-visual project, where she has taken this line and she has seen Ramana as that embodiment of all these Dashavida kolam, Dashavida forms of Vishnu, who every time came down with lot of compassion, with his compassion to protect the virtuous and to destroy the adharma. When we think of the Matsyavatara, Srimati Sulochana Natarajan remembers that Ramana was born Ramana got enlightened in the place of Meenakshi, the one who has the eyes just like the fishes. And it is told that the fishes hatch their eggs just through the sight. They keep seeing the eggs that they have laid, and the eggs hatches. That is the way of their love towards their eggs. And Ramana got enlightened in that auspicious place of Madurai Meenakshi Devi to tell us, to reveal to the whole world that we are not this body, we are that, the deathless spirit that is ever shining in us as the Shruti note to reveal us this truth. Ramana got enlightened at Madurai Meenakshi Kshetra, And when we think of Kurma, Srimati Sulochana Natarajan remembers the incident that happened in the tortoise rock. The tortoise rock where Ramana again went through the experience of death. And at that point, he revealed to the whole world that even when the body is dead, even when the heart stops beating, even when the body becomes cold, still that self that we are shines brightly, and that self does not have any death, does not have any limit, or does not have any non-continuity. It is ever shining as I. To tell us this truth, he enacted that drama in the and the tortoise rock and the Kurma Avatara. It represented that Kurma was the support for the churning that was happening. And Ramana is the support. Ramana is the self, which is the support for all the sadhanas that we do. When the churning is happening, he is the support. Ramana says in the story of the 10 fools, he says when the 10 fools were crying that they had lost a friend, when they were searching for the friend, when they were tired searching for their friend, and at last when they got their friend, realized that the friend was there with them. The friend had not gone anywhere. He was always there. So that is the self. That is the friend who is always there as the support to our sadhana of the churning of good and bad, from which the elixir of immortality has to come. And he is the Varaha Avatara, one who was born in the Bhuminatha Kshetra to protect the world. And the world is nothing but this Kshetra called the body. And to protect this body, he has taken the form of Varaha Avatara and saving us. And he is the Narasimha Avatara. We hear that Bhagavan says that an elephant which dreams of a Simha, a lion in its dream, it never goes back to the sleep again. It's called the Simha Swapna. And Ramana says the Guru is that Simha. In this dream called the life, he appears amidst us like the Simha and Guru Ramana Singham. And when he comes, we are awakened and we never go back to that the state of sleep and dream. He has come to awaken us from this dream-like life. He has come to awaken us, and that Ramana in various forms. We can go on understanding all these great avatars which Vishnu has taken, and who is nothing other than the self. And Ramana, the very same self, has come to us in various ways. He comes to some of them as the Who Am I inquiry. He comes to some of them as the Nama, Ramana Nama. He comes in the form of the songs. He comes in the form of stories. And he comes in a way that is appropriate to each one of us. And what can we speak of his glory and his glorious forms, for which he has come to our lives to remove all the papa and to give us that liberation, that abidance, which alone is the paramount duty, which alone is the dharma. Ramana has come to our lives. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the sharing of Ramana Ashtottaram by Dr. Sarada.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self, manifest as Ramana, we are meditating on the namas or the names of Bhagavan Ramana, the 108 names which have been intuited and strung together in Sanskrit by Vishwanatha Swami. And we are on the Nama Tivraya Namaha, which is followed by Pitripadan Veshine Namaha. We heard about Bhagavan Ramana's enlightenment. Mahashakti Nipatena Prabuddhaya Namaha Paramartha Vide Namaha Tivraya Namaha. That knowledge which Bhagavan got, the Paramartha Vidya. The Vidya, the Paramartha Vidya which he attained through the descent of that great power, that great grace, that attainment of the supreme knowledge of the self, brought him to be intensely aware of it at all times. There was no change in his state. He says, from that moment onwards, there was no change in my state. Other experiences may come and go like different notes of music, but the I continued as the Shruti note, as the basic note, the underlying current for all the experiences. And he was intensely abiding in that truth. Tivraya Namaha. And we saw how this intense experience was expressing itself in the form of tears of ecstasy flowing from his eyes as he stood before Meenakshi Amman or the Nataraja, or he stood before any of the 63 Nayanmars, the 63 Saivite saints. And that outpouring was happening, that intense outpouring. And therefore, Vishwanatha Swami says he was Tivra. But this intensity, which starts over here, as Bhagavan says, there was no change in his state from that moment onwards. So we can see that everything in his life story, that story which actually liberates all those who hear it from bondage, Ramana Charita Chintana Nasha Bhavada Bandhana, that life bestowing and bondage destroying story of Bhagavan, every moment we find it is epitomized by the Tivra, the intensity of that moment. Wherever Bhagavan is, whatever he is doing, he is intensely in that anubhava. There is nothing else apart from it. Everything is included in that experience of the self, which is very intense. And because of this, what was the outward expression of such a state of intense abidance in the self? Bhagavan was obviously not interested in anything else. If at all he had great interest in anything, he now became disinterested even in that experience. Even in the sports that he used to play, he became disinterested. Why? Because he was intensely involved in the self, intensely aware of the self. So other thoughts he would have countenanced, because he does say they may come and go, they may pertain to certain activities that need to be done. But they were whatever came was on the surface. It was not deep down within. It was not only not deep down within, Bhagavan says in Ekanma Panchakam that everything is within the self. This he came to know. He says that I was the self, and which included and transcended the body. Included and transcended. So in this intense experience, all other experiences are included. Everything is in it because there is nothing apart from it. So that is the intensity of that experience of the Atmanubhavam. And Bhagavan is in that state as a young boy, and it is not that people will not notice or people have not noticed. They have noticed, the family people have noticed some marked change in his behavior. And obviously they will ask him. And they have asked from time to time, and especially Nagaswami, his elder brother, has from time to time in this period of 6 weeks, roughly 6 weeks, says Bhagavan, when he left, before he left from home, after his enlightenment, before he left from home, the 6 weeks when Bhagavan was at Madurai, all his friends and relatives must have obviously noticed the change in his behavior, and especially and undoubtedly it was noticed by his elder brother Nagaswami. Not only was it noticed, he was often reprimanded for it as well. Nagaswami would often give remarks saying, "Oh, this is Yogeshwara, he is sitting and meditating all the time," or some such thing. There were always some jibes which were happening, but Bhagavan was untouched by all these comments of his elder brother. Yet one day, which was on the 28th of August probably, or 29th of August itself, his English teacher gave him a punishment to write down a particular exercise in Bain's grammar 3 times. He was to write the whole exercise of that particular exercise of Bain's grammar 3 times. He was asked to do that as a punishment, as an imposition for being inattentive in the class. And what was Bhagavan doing after coming home? He was actually writing this exercise probably the next morning. That was the morning of the 29th of August. And he was writing out this exercise which he had promised to his teacher, or rather, he was told by the teacher to do it, and he had not resisted it within himself, and he began to write out this exercise. And when he was writing it, he had written it twice already, and he felt that it was a futile exercise. Why on earth am I doing this again and again? What is the use of it? As Adi Shankara says, nahi nahi rakshati dukrim karane. So what is the answer if it is not to be indifferent? The answer is to be with Arunachala's call. Bhagavan decided that it is time to answer Arunachala's call. How did the call actually manifest? It manifested as a reprimand from the brother again. But it was not different from the earlier reprimands of his brother. The brother again said to him, why is all this of any use? If Bhagavan says, nahi nahi rakshati, and he has left the copying of the Bain's grammar exercise, the 3rd time he has not copied it, he has put aside the book, and he is lost in deep meditation. The elder brother says, of what use is all this for such a one? That's all he says. Nagaswami, the elder brother, says, of what use is all this for such a one? And Bhagavan will believes in that moment that it is a call from Arunachala. Arunachala is asking him, not his elder brother, but Arunachala is asking him, of what use is all this? Why are you wasting your time? And he feels it's a call from Arunachala. That intense experience of the Atma Tattva now found an answer, an outlet, as it were. It was flowing forth as tears of bhakti, but now there was a very specific direction. The guidance had come from Arunachala. Come. The call had come. Come to me. That call had come. And Vishwanatha Swami says, Pitrapadan Veshini Namaha. He set out in search of his father. He told his elder brother that he was going for a special class. And the brother asked him to pay his own college fees, taking the money from a place where it was kept in a box. Taking the money from there, take 5 rupees and pay my college fees, says the elder brother. Thus, Arunachala provided money for the journey. We will see how he provides money for the journey and how, despite that, there are many travails of the journey, in the sense where how we see those, that the expression of it to us, it is many travails on the journey. And Vishwanatha Swami says, Pitra Padan Veshine Namaha. He set out in search of the state of his father. That's how Vishwanatha Swami brings the bridge. He doesn't say Pitra Padan Veshine Namaha immediately after the Paramartha Vide Nama. After Paramartha Vide, he says Tivra, defining the entire life of Bhagavan, which is full of intense abidance in the self. So that is the Tivra. And then for us to understand it, for us to marvel at it, for us to revel in it, Bhagavan's, the manifestation of that Tivra happens as Bhagavan's life. Every moment of Bhagavan's life, which is pure grace. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the chanting of Aksharamanamalai by Srimati Radha and Vallabh.
Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Omkara Porul Puyavilloi Unayararivar Arunachala. Auvai Polyanakun Arulai Tandene Aduvadun Kadan Arunachala. Kannukku kannai kannindri kaanune kaaduvadevar paar Arunachala. Kaantam irumba pol kavarndinai vidamal kalandinnodiruppaai Arunachala. Giriyuruvagiya kirupai kadale kripai koondaruluvaai Arunachala. கீழ்மேலெங்கும் கிளரொளி மணியன் கீழ்மையை பாழ் செய் அருணாச்சலா. குற்றமுற்றரு தென்னை குணமாய் பணித்தாள் குரு குருவாய் ஒளிர் அருணாச்சலா. கூர்வாட்கண்ணியர் கொடுமையை படாதருள் கூர்ந்தென்னை சேர்ந்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. கெஞ்சியும் வஞ்சிய கொஞ்சமும் இறங்கிலை அஞ்சல் என்றே அருள் அருணாச்சலா. கேளாதளிக்கும் உன் கேடில் புகழை கேடு செய்யாதருள் அருணாச்சலா.
கையினி கனி உன்மை ரசம் கொண்டு உவகை வெறி கொளருளருணாச்சலா கொடியிட்டடியரை கொல்லுனை கட்டி கொண்டெங்கன் வாழ்வேன் அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ 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 அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி அக்ஷரமணமாலை வாழி. நமோ ரமண.
Namo Ramana. We conclude today's satsang with the Ashtottara puja to Bhagavan at Sri Dilip Simha's altar. The puja done by Sri Dilip Simha. The chanting of the Ashtottara will be done by Vaibhavji and Prarthana and Srimati Ashwini Balaji.
नमो रमण. भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्विमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि. ॐ महासेन महोंशेन जाताय नमः. ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः. ॐ गुरवे नमः. ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः. ॐ महौजसे नमः. ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः. ॐ जगद्हितावताराय नमः. ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोत्थिताय नमः. ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः. ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः. ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः. ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः. ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः. ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः. ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः. ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः. ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः. ॐ तीव्राय नमः. ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः. ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः. ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः. ॐ तपोमयाय नमः. ॐ उदासीनाय नमः. ॐ महायोगिने नमः. ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः. ॐ कुशाग्रधिये नमः. ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः. ॐ सुसन्द्रशे नमः. ॐ सवित्रे नमः. ॐ स्थिराय नमः. ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः. ॐ फुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः. ॐ चन्द्रिकास्थितहास्य श्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः. ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः. ॐ चूर्णिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः. ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः. ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः. ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः. ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजतचलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्य निभाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः।
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्रीशोणाचलहृद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्नसंशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविदायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ वृच्छान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगभिषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमणभगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यः स्थाणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः हृन्निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शनसुखमङ्गलमुखसकलजीवहितसम्मुख ब्रह्मसङ्घिये सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानन्दपुष्ट परममहर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡುತ್ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಘಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ महर्षि नमो महर्षि नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।
Jai.